Another tough ending to this season for the Edmonton Oilers. Bounced again in the playoffs. What does the future look like for this team? What does it hold for a lot of their members who are going to be unrestricted free agents or even restricted free agents? Who are the Oilers going to be able to sign with their cap room? What does the team look like moving forward with their coach, GM, and players on it? We're going to get into that and more, so let's go ahead, hop into it right now. Here we are again, sitting in the off season during the playoffs. As an Oilers fan can never be fun, and thankfully, I'm not an Oilers fan, but for all of you guys that are, I do feel for you. I am a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, so I know what that's like, or don't know what it's like of missing the playoffs for a long time. It's been a while for me, but well, Oilers fans, here we are. Another video like this talking about the off season for the Oilers, not missing the playoffs, getting bounced in the playoffs second round when you think the team's going to make a run to the Stanley Cup Finals with the most historic power play in regular season history as well as playoffs, around about a 50% clip on the power play, and they just can't get it done. Even with the two-headed monster of McDavid and Draisaitl, the Oilers come up dry. No oil to be had for the town of Edmonton in this one. And really, it's hard to really talk about. At the end of the day, I think it comes down to the depth of the team, the defense, and the goaltending. You got tons of contributions from your top guys, and we'll get into the stats, and I'll show you guys here in just a moment. But the depth and the defense and goaltending, I think, were the biggest issues in these playoffs. Obviously, Bouchard had a great playoff, but still in the defensive zones for him and a few others, in particular, Darnell Nurse being one of them, making $9.5 million a year. Not to say too much, and he's not really producing. That's always a tough look, but it's golly gee, that is tough to watch. And you have a goaltender who's making $5-point-some-odd million a year, not even starting in the game. Obviously, Stuart Skinner was hot throughout the playoffs, but your top goalie that you paid all this money for isn't actually playing. I don't really know how that's supposed to work in a successful formula when it comes to a team, but let's go ahead. I mean, there's a lot to dive into, but I want to get the stats on the screen. I want to get the contracts on the screen. We'll go over some things. This isn't by far a full recap of the Oilers, but more so what happened, what's going to happen, and we'll go from there. But let me go ahead and pull up the stats and contracts on the screen right now. So on the screen right now, guys, are the stats for the Edmonton Oilers. We'll also take a look at their contracts as we get a little bit deeper into the talk. But I think at first we need to take a look at their regular season stats and then truly would be able to understand a little bit more of the drop-off with the playoff stats. But man, oh man, the Hart Trophy, it is definitely going to Connor McDavid. An absolute stellar season for him. Just 153 points. Dude had 64 goals, 89 assists on the year. Just absolutely insane. Same can be said for Draisaitl. 128 points on the year. 52 goals, 76 assists. Just absolutely insane for him. And then Ryan Nugent-Hopkins breaking the 100-point barrier, had 37 goals, 67 assists, and same can be said Zach Hyman, 83 points, absolutely insane. Darnell Nurse, 43 points. Bouchard, 40. Ekholm, 32. And he also played with the Nashville Predators. One of the best pickups, I thought, of the entire trade deadline. I thought they did a great job bringing him in. Bukestad, another addition that they brought in, who brought some salt and pepper to their bottom depth. Evander Kane, down year, but he did have that scary wrist injury. 28 points. Fogle, 28 points. So really, after your top guys, it then just is a massive drop-off with points, and that kind of leads to the conversation of their depth scoring. When you have a two-headed horse or a two-headed snake or whatever you want to call them with McDavid and Draisaitl, they can only carry you so far, especially when you get from regular season to the playoffs. The game changes. It becomes more of a heavy-type game. Yes, speed kills. Speed always kills, but there are teams who do a great job of adjusting, which the Vegas Golden Knights did with their defense and the way that they played against McDavid and against Draisaitl. And if you can't break them up and you have them on the same line, I think it's a little bit easier to shut down the Edmonton Oilers, because then you're taking away from the depth of, okay, well, we got a game plan if we're the Vegas Golden Knights or if we are the LA Kings. If you split McDavid and Draisaitl up, okay, we got a game plan separately for these guys because they're not going to be on the same ice at the same time. But when they are, which I think the Oilers found themselves doing a little bit more in the Vegas Golden Knights series, especially towards the end, and playing them a ton, 20, 25 minutes worth of ice time, it starts to wear and tear on those top guys. And you could tell either Draisaitl was either a little bit dinged up or was just getting gassed, because in games 3 through 6, he pretty much did nothing. McDavid, I thought, was very solid throughout. But again, when you have both those guys on the ice, I think for opposing teams it's a little bit easier to game plan, considering the fact that after those two guys, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is the next best thing, and he really didn't do anything these playoffs. So I don't think teams are too worried about him. And Hyman, he is a very solid player, but I don't think he's anyone that a team is specifically game planning for. And then after that, again, it just drops off right off the table. Bouchard with 29 points, for a forward below Zach Hyman for the entire year. And he didn't even play for them the whole year, which, that's just insane. Between the pipes, I thought Skinner, he played okay. He had his games. He had his moments. Let me throw up the playoff stats, and you guys will now see what I'm really talking about with that depth of scoring where, again, McDavid, 20 points. Draisaitl, 18 points. Bouchard, 17 points. Dude was absolutely on fire in the playoffs offensively. Defensively is a whole nother story. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Hyman tied with 11 points. Ekholm with 7 points, very good. Ryan McLeod, very awesome playoffs. Was really excited to see him break out a little bit. Costin as well. I thought he played tremendous throughout the playoffs. Between the pipes, Skinner, he was their main goalie through the playoffs, 3.68 with an 8.83 save percentage, and you're not going to the guy who you're paying all the money to. I don't know why. Riding the hot goaltender. Maybe they thought that was the right choice. With Woodcroft as their coach. Maybe he thought that was the right move. And obviously at the end of the day it wasn't. I thought they should have went to Jack Campbell in game 6, to be quite honest. Get some fresh blood in there, see what he could do, because I thought last year for the Maple Leafs he looked very decent in the playoffs. I thought it wasn't his fault that the Leafs lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning. If anything, he kept them in that game 7 last year. So again, not really too sure what the coach was thinking on that one. I know it was a tough decision, and to be honest, I think he made the wrong one. I think you had to find a way to try to get those top guys split up. But again, with the lack of scoring, Woodcroft had to do something, put them together, see if they can work their magic. And again, they did very well throughout, but other than that, the depth just was not there. The defense, oh boy. Let's head over to the contracts now, because we'll start getting into that a little bit. But their defense, oh my goodness. And we'll just take a look at the contracts while we're talking about them. Darnell Nurse, $9.25 million for the next foreseeable future. It is until 2029, 2030. That's insane. 2, you're paying that guy that much money. He's 11.2% worth of your team cap, and he's playing like that in the playoffs? Are you kidding me? Like, are you actually kidding me? It's a brutal look. Don't get me wrong. I thought he was playing more like a 6.25 per year type defenseman in the playoffs. Like, not very bad, but also at the same time not very good, making bonehead decisions, not keeping a head on the swivel, turning the puck over, not really anything offensively for them in the playoffs. Dude had no goals and 4 assists, and you're paying him $9.25 a year? Really? I don't know. Was he playing banged up? Maybe. Does he not have a lot of playoff experience? In the past couple of years, he's definitely gained some. He is 28 years old, so still younger of a defenseman, but it's not a good look when that defenseman, who you're paying top dollar for, the second most expensive player on your team, is playing that way. That's just a tough look. Again, there were some spurts there in the playoffs where he looked good, but man, it's really hard to paint a positive picture on it when he just played the way he did. Ekholm, I thought he looked great. They have him at $6 million a year. which isn't terrible because I know Nashville also picked up some of his contract, so I don't know his actual full contract. Cody Ceci, I mean, you're paying $325 a year. He was kind of a ghost out there in the playoffs, didn't really play great defensively, turned the puck over, bad pinches, not looking too great out there. Desharnais, I mean, you're paying league minimum for him. He is only 26 years old. I'm not too worried about him, but again, he didn't play the best in the playoffs. Again, he had a couple good games here and there, but overall, I thought it could have been a lot better. Brett Kulak, he is 29 years old, $275, I think is a little bit of a bargain of a deal. Again, there were times where he looked great, very solid. The team looked cohesive, moving well from the defensive zone to the offensive zone, but man, there were some points where it's like head scratching, like, what's going on here, dude? And the same can be said, Evan Bouchard. He was their most productive defenseman. Obviously, running the point on the power play is going to have a lot to do with that. Gaining confidence, gaining momentum, getting the touches, having a ton of points, especially when you're passing the puck to Draisaitl and McDavid and Nugent-Hopkins and Hyman out there. So you're going to get a lot of cookies. But defensively, Bouchard, there are a couple plays, couple times in certain games where it's like, whoa, dude, what do you... Almost like how I've basically said about everyone else on their defense, except Ekholm, which I thought he was very solid throughout the playoffs. Probably their most consistent defensive defenseman. But Bouchard was quite the opposite. He's, again, experience is key. He's now, I would say, pretty much their go-to defenseman, and they've got a decision to make because he is going to be an RFA this upcoming summer. So thankfully they have that going for them, a little bit of leverage. But when you look at the projected cap, they only have $5.97 million worth of projected cap. That is a recipe for disaster when you're looking at the rest of the players on their team that they need to sign. Now, again, their top guys are pretty much locked in. So your core, which is not a core 4, it's more of a core, 10 players at least, are locked in, which is great. So it's more so developing or creating that depth in another way. Now, is it going to be tough? Yes, because they have to pay Bouchard. I think if they can try to snipe a bridge deal for Bouchard, he is only a restricted free agent, having a great year. He is 23 years old. I think since he is going to be the guy, the offensive defenseman, since Barry isn't there anymore, I think if they can get him on a bridge deal 2-3 years at like $4.25 million, I think that'd be an absolute steal. If they can get that, let's say 3 years at $4.25 or even $5 million, I think that's a pretty decent bridge deal. Maybe if you can get the money down or whatever it is, but I think that is key in what they're looking for. Because if they can sign him, realistically speaking, when you look at their lineup on paper, they technically have 3 solid defensemen: Nurse, Ekholm, and Bouchard. I mean, that's pretty good. And then when you look up front, you got McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, Evander Kane, Yamamoto, who I thought was okay in the playoffs. And that's that. So you're looking pretty good up front if they can figure it out. Now, depth is where it gets a little scary because you got Derek Ryan, Janmark, you got Devin Shore, which didn't really see too much of him. Bukestad, I think, is somebody they want to try to bring back for sure as like a third, fourth line centerman. Try to bring him back. Big body, can throw the body around, does so a lot, and is a good locker room guy, I think. Restricted free agents, Ryan McLeod is another guy you're going to need to pay. Dude had a great playoffs as well as Costin. 2 restricted free agents. Can you sign them both and Bouchard, but then have a little bit something else left over? Do you try to trade somebody? I think maybe it's time to move on from Yamamoto. Try to open up some space there. He has 3-1 for essentially another year after this upcoming year. So I think a team would definitely be willing to take that on. You maybe get like a 4th, 5th round pick for him, but maybe move on from him. Does Evander Kane have anything left in the tank? I don't know. Maybe you move on from him. I don't think they're going to part ways. Obviously, McDavid, Draisaitl, they're staying. Obviously, next year is a contract year for Draisaitl, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out moving forward into the future. But Hyman, Hopkins, and Evander Kane. Out of those three, who do you move on from? Technically speaking, I would say Evander Kane. Doesn't have a big history there with them. Didn't look very good. Again, scary injury, cut the wrist. Maybe he'll come back next year and put up like 60, 70 points. That is a possibility on the Edmonton Oilers during the regular season. Zach Hyman, I think you got to keep him around. Good salt pepper guy. Puts his nose in the dirty places. Gets in front of the net. You can't really move on from him. Nugent Hopkins, a lifer with the Oilers. I don't think you can move on from him with the bargain that he's already on. 5.125 until 2028, 2029. That's an absolute steal of a deal. So it'll be interesting with their contracts, how they can figure it out. Now, another place where you could potentially shed some contract space is your goaltending. Do you move on from Campbell? Because Stuart Skinner, he's going to be going to $2.6 million. So that's already going to eat into the cap space. Or I think it's already shown that it's already in the cap space next year. So that does play a factor into that 5, 9, 7 that they already have going. So do you maybe open up some more cap? Do you feel confident enough that Stuart Skinner is your guy and that maybe you go pick somebody up off of free agency as a backup, maybe 1B type goaltender? At like, I don't know, $1.5, $2.5 million, save like $3 to $3.5 million to invest in your front line and invest in Evan Bouchard and bringing him back. Because again, at the end of the day, we're really starting to play with the pieces of depth here. And okay, can we put this puzzle piece here and there, trying to get the puzzle to actually work? I don't think they have that right now. It's going to be interesting to see what they do this offseason. I think you have to get McLeod back. You have to get Costin back. You have to get Bouchard back. And from there, I think maybe even Nick Bukestad you got to get back. So expendable players, Derek Ryan, Jan Mark, Devin Shore, 100% for sure. But it'll be interesting to see who they potentially even bring in. Maybe there's a crazy trade like Yamamoto, Evander Kane. Who knows? Maybe they even look to try to move on from a defenseman like Brett Kulak, Cody Ceci, and can they find a suitor for Jack Campbell? I think they'll probably end up keeping him, and that's just a lot of cap. That's $7.6 million worth of cap money in goaltending alone. That's a little high for me, but it's going to be interesting to see what the Edmonton Oilers do moving forward. But oh man, it is going to be a fun offseason. Obviously, they want to be playing right now just like any other team in the NHL does, trying to go for the Stanley Cup. But some teams got to lose, and in this case, it was the Edmonton Oilers. But getting into the closing of this video, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments, what the Edmonton Oilers should do moving forward. I mean, with their cap restrictions and the players that they need to re-sign, how are they going to make this team any different and better moving forward, trying to make a deeper run into the playoffs? Let me know down below in the comments what you guys think. Edmonton Oilers fans, any fans in the NHL, McDavid, Draisaitl fans, let me know what you guys think down below. If you guys are also new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are growing like crazy, and I can't thank you guys enough for the love and support that you have been showing this channel. So keep it up if you guys like anything hockey. We do pretty much every team. So if you guys like these types of videos, subscribe to the channel. Again, what do the Oilers do this offseason? What type of players can they keep? Can Bouchard stay? Can Costin stay? Can McLeod stay? Are they going to be able to re-sign them and have enough cap space left over to build some depth and build some confidence in their team that they have the depth in order to make a deep run into the playoffs? Because regular season is one thing. You can score as many goals, get as many points as you possibly can. But when it's the playoffs, it's a new season. Teams ramp it up, and the Edmonton Oilers just don't have that salt and pepper to get all the way to the Cup final and potentially win a Stanley Cup at this point in time, in my opinion. But we will have to wait and see what they do this offseason with their team. I'm really excited to see it, but that's going to be it for this episode, guys. If you did enjoy, be sure to drop a like on this video. But I hope you guys have a good one, and as always, stay dusty.